You are technically... Turns out my GoPro's just been recording in my bag. That's fine, whatever.
Look at this dude.
I'm hoping that at some point this week I'm going to be asked to go to a go-kart track. It's about a 45-minute walk away from me. But I'll make it work. I'll see what I can do.
And make it work I did, because here I am at Kart Fun Malaga. A track which initially had me a little concerned that this was going to be some sort of rinky-dink tourist trap with a name like that, but I came to find out that this was actually a pretty good track, running a solid fleet of both 270cc run-of-the-mill 4-stroke karts and 420cc competition karts that were just labelled competition. I couldn't find any additional details on those beyond the word Paralin, so pro karters, do with that what you will. I'm going to be doing both kinds of karts today, and this is just going to be a laid-back video of me soaking up some sun behind the wheel of my favourite kind of lawnmower. So first, let's peep the track layout. So we kick things off with a straight dash to the line, which is then followed by a right-left sequence of 90-degree bends. Then there's a quick dash towards a hairpin, which then leads to another right-left combo into another hairpin, which then leads us into this rather tight double apex, which is a very technical combo of corners. Following that, a bigger double apex, and then a quick sprint to the line. It's quite a simple layout, but it's an effective one. After being given my safety briefing by this gentleman, which simply boiled down to don't crash the kart and don't double pedal, I left the pits in nothing but my summer casual wear, a borrowed helmet, and my trusty DJI camera. So, let's go karting in Spain! Okay, so as we shoot over the line for the first time, the first thing I notice after that right-hander bend is the complete and utter lack of grip. Now, this can be attributed to two things. One, my tyres are ironically quite cold, but two, the track is incredibly hot, which means when those two things collide, they're not really working together, which means that if I do heat these tyres up, the traction's still not going to be there much because there's just too much energy going into the tyres because of the heat. However, I will get that under control because this track layout is relatively simple, and I am starting to enjoy it even as I cross the line for the first time. I try and nail the exit this time and get a slightly more controlled exit. I get closer to the barriers on my right. I am starting to feel it a little bit. However, because of the lack of traction and me not figuring that out yet, I just slowly sink into that hairpin right there, and as I take these left-right sequence of corners, I actually clip the barrier there. That won't be the first time I make contact with that barrier, but trust me, the next time I do, it's going to be a bit more severe than that. Now, this part of the track right here was definitely the more technical part of the track, because this hairpin going directly into this double apex was an absolute head scratcher at first, especially combined with the fact that I've got absolutely no traction right now. But as the session went on, I did start to take those corners what I perceived to be a lot better, as here we are on lap 8, tucking nice and close to the apexes of all the corners, getting nice and close to the barrier on my exit, controlling my speed going through the hairpin, and then getting nice and tight to both apexes and a nice wide exit onto the little straight here. Rounding off the lap is this double apex here, and then a lovely straight dash to the finish line. Now, this sequence of right-left corners definitely got my mood killed, especially when I would understeer on the exit of the first bend, but considering that I was starting to take this hairpin a little tighter, even if my exits are quite messy still, I was starting to gel with this track's layout. It's very fun, very technical, and quite thought-provoking. I can only lament the fact that I was on track alone, because I genuinely think that I would have had a lot of fun racing people on a track layout like this, because it definitely offers a lot of thought-provoking instances on where to make moves. I won't be alone all day though, fortunately. I will have the opportunity to race people, but they come in the faster karts, because of course they do. I did get a fair few laps out of my experience, but that's because I bought 2 sessions back to back and they combined them into one session. My biggest gripe with this track was definitely the time slots they offered, which were 8-minute sessions, and for the prices that those 8-minute sessions cost, I don't know if it was worth it, to be honest. However, it's the only karting track within reach on my holiday, so I'm absolutely going to race here. But to put it into perspective, half an hour at a team sport track will set you back about 45-50 quid. However, just 15 minutes at this track set me back 45 euros, which roughly translates into about 40 GBP. So this track is almost twice the price of your average team sport track for what exactly? The fact that the roof isn't on? The fact that the sun is out? I suppose. But then it's also important to remember that this is also an independent track, so obviously the pricing is going to be a little bit steeper. So I can at least forgive it on that front, especially when the track itself is quite a fun layout, and this kart I'm driving is actually brilliant. I have absolutely no complaints with this kart whatsoever. The throttle was responsive, the brakes worked, the steering was nice and sharp. For a random track in the middle of Spain, this track's fleet was fantastic, and I had no complaints whatsoever. I really enjoyed it here. By now though, I've gotten a pretty decent feel for this track, and the tyres have started to get into an optimal operating window, so I've actually started to take these corners quite well. I'm a lot closer to that hairpin than I have been pretty much every single lap this session, although I am still understeering massively on the exit because there is still a little bit of slip and slide going on. This technical sequence of corners was definitely really intriguing though, almost intriguing enough to make me wish I could go back at any time to try and master them. That is the benefit of good track design, when it has those parts that just leave your head scratching and just make you want to master them completely. And Kart Fun Malaga definitely had that. And after wringing 29 laps of entertainment out of my 45 euros, it was finally time for me to swing into the pits. So I pulled my kart into the pit lane, and I think it's time to decompress for a little bit before I head back out there in a much, much faster kart. That was recording, yes? Yes, it was. I hope you enjoyed spending the last 5 minutes of your life staring at my noodly pale body, because soon you're going to be subjected to a little bit more of that. But, honestly, despite me wincing at the price of even just the regular karts here, I did have a lot of fun at this track. And it was a nice dip back into karting to ease off the withdrawal symptoms I was having while miles and miles away from home. After a quick decompress sesh, I was then led to the crown jewels of this track, which were these 420cc karts simply labelled competition on their website. I don't know much about the karts themselves, I believe they are 4-stroke, just a little bit stronger than normal ones, but I did see the word Paralin on them somewhere, which is apparently a professional tier karting brand, so maybe these things have got some power behind them? There's only one way to find out though, and that's to drive the thing. So, let's take our seat, and let's get out there again. And after one tentative warm-up lap on freezing cold tyres in this kart, it was now finally time to actually put it through its paces. And pace definitely was the word of the day with this thing because it had it in absolute spades. This thing I don't really know a whole lot about, so I can't exactly explain what makes it so fast. But the throttle response was instant. Also, keep an eye on that van outside of the fence. This is how quickly the thing accelerates. I've just overtaken it while I was finishing saying the word accelerates. That's how quick this thing actually was. As I go darting over the line to record the first lap, I'm already absolutely terrified of this thing and basically just playing it safe for the time being, trying to keep it in a straight line. I've given myself a couple of laps to actually get used to this thing here in the hopes that I can actually find some pace because, again, I've started to go all over the place. My lines are now a complete mess because, frankly, I'm just trying to find out what makes this kart tick. It's a very interesting kart to drive because I can't actually tell if it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke because it definitely handles like a 4-stroke, but it has the acceleration response of a 2-stroke. So I'm kind of just trying to come up with some kind of hybridized driving style for the pair of them while just sliding my way through all of the corners because I can't accelerate too early because this kart will absolutely let me know that I've done that. And the tires are still a little bit not optimal at the moment, so I'm just trying to keep my eye on that for the time being. I'm getting slightly quicker through that chicane, but it's getting to be a little bit difficult to do this section here. Because if I put too much throttle on, I'm basically power sliding through the corner at the best of times and risking nose planting directly into the apex of it at the worst. It has been a few more laps now, and I am absolutely nowhere near any better in this kart than when I started. I was tighter to the apexes in those two corners there, but in the more technical corners such as this one, I'm kind of sacrificing a lot of speed to get myself through the corner and staying relatively close to the apex. This is a pretty small track, so I can't actually unleash the true potential of this kart, given what I'm actually driving. This corner proved to be a nightmare consistently because I almost oversteered directly into the first apex. The car was very, very slidey in these conditions because, again, the track was very, very hot and the throttle response was unbelievably quick. So I'm just trying to get as much speed as I can out of this thing, absolutely missing the apex right there, pretty much catching up to that car on the outside over there before almost overtaking it until I have to do these corners here. I'm just really being cautious with this thing, but trying to wring as much speed as I can because, again, I'm still oversteering through that corner and risking hitting the barrier. It's like tickling the tail of a sleeping dragon. I do this wrong enough, the dragon wakes up and I crash the thing, which is not exactly what we want here. The astute of you may have noticed that I've got a Kimi Räikkönen quote, "I know what I'm doing, so just be quiet," tattooed on my right arm. However, this right here is definitive proof that I do not know what I'm doing because I absolutely oversteer into the barrier on my exit of those corners, trying to carry it through with a bit more speed. It's really starting to get difficult because I'm trying to apply more speed and not really sure where I should do it. However, you might have noticed that now I am no longer alone on this track. So I've got some overtaking to do. I'm not entirely sure what the skill level of these guys are. For all I know, they could be regulars at this track because one of them does have a 360 camera poking off at the top of their heads, but the only way I can find out is to catch up to them and try and overtake them. Fortunately for my fragile ego though, I've caught up to them quicker than I expected to. This guy in front of me holds onto the left hand side but then brakes a lot earlier than you necessarily need to, and I just slip down the inside. His compatriot, however, spins out in front of me and I just barely graze his cart instead of crashing directly into the side of him. So that was my first encounter with actual people on this track, overtaking people in a cart that is actively trying to kill me at all times. That was fun. The previous lap I had been trying a different grip on the steering wheel because, as one of our favourite YouTubers likes to tell us, lower is slower. However, it wasn't really doing a whole lot for me, so I sincerely apologise, but I'm going to put my hands right back where I find them the most comfortable, which was towards the centre of the steering wheel, but generally, if it's a circular steering wheel, I'll drive at 4 to 8. It's only really the square BizKart steering wheels where I find that a top grip is a lot more helpful. Because on this thing, it just feels kind of stilted and weird, and it wasn't really doing a whole lot for me. As we round this out, I think we should have another interaction with our track compatriots here. As I look to the gap on the inside of this individual here, I decide to brave it slightly later on the brakes, just like last time. Now, his friend didn't spin out in this section, fortunately, so I start to give chase, manage to take these corners slightly quicker than he does, as he starts oversteering on his exits, which means I'm able to close up the gap just a little bit. I start looking for my opportunity, though, as he gets a really wide exit coming out of that corner. I pull side by side with a much quicker exit with a lot of throttle to use right there, and thus begins the final lap. He's right behind me here, so I've got to make sure that he doesn't try any gung-ho last-minute moves. He's already on my inside here, but I know for a fact he's going to brake a lot earlier than I do there, so I just kind of stay the course, really. I get a lot closer to the outside barrier on my exit, but I don't think I actually made contact that time. I'm still making an absolute dog's breakfast of that double apex, though, because I'm still oversteering, sliding around the place, but generally keeping it under control. And as I dash to the line just one more time, I finally get beckoned into the pits so I can call my time on Kart Fun Malaga. I had a lot of fun. This was a very enjoyable experience. After being shown some respect by the two gentlemen I was sharing the track with, I then headed inside to take my helmet off, decompress, and now I can give you my final thoughts. So, a nice laid-back video for today, because I just wanted to show off the time that while I was on holiday in Spain, I actually did manage to get some karting in, because I literally cannot stay away from this sport. And honestly, this track that I managed to visit was actually a really good one. I do lament the fact that there weren't many people on track with me right until the very end, and there was only 2 people on track with me, which are these 2 gentlemen right here, because I feel like having some people to actually share that track with would have made the experience a lot more fun. But at the same time, I definitely had fun anyway. The fleet was really well maintained, the competition kart was absolutely insane to drive, the layout was fun to drive, and the sun remained beaming the entire time. So, what's not to love? If you do happen to find yourself in Malaga, this track's definitely worth a visit. Now, I made this video as a little bit of a stopgap, a break if you will, because I wanted to get some content out, but the next video I've got planned is going to be a big one. As you all know, BIKC Regionals happened recently, and there's definitely a story to tell there. So, I released this video while working on that one in the meantime. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.